We'll now call the special meeting of July 17th to order. Our invocation tonight is led by Pastor Dustin Parker from Concordia Lutheran Church. Will you please rise?
If you're willing, please pray with me. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, we thank you for our city and for those who diligently serve it. Lord, we thank you for the Sheriff's Department and the Fire Department and those who work on the City Council, and especially those who work behind the scenes, doing all the work that keeps our city a nice place to live and to serve and to worship in. Lord, bless the time of this service, this meeting tonight. Lord, give the council wisdom. Give them courage to make decisions that are in the best interest of everyone, even if they're not popular. Lord, help them to do things in an honorable way. Lord, I ask you to bless them and make this time a joyous one as we look at our city and what's going on in it. Lord, bless this time. We pray in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. And our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by the Strikers, the Cerritos Youth Soccer Team, Elementary Division. Please come forward.
Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you, Strikers. Can you introduce yourselves to the audience, please?
My name is Sadana. I'm 10 years old, and I'm going to 5th grade.
My name is Deacon. I am 9 years old, and I'm going into 4th grade.
My name is Kaiten. I am 10 years old, and I'm going to 5th grade.
My name is Dasha. I am 11 years old, and I am going to 6th grade.
My name is Jalen. I'm 10 years old, and I'm going to 5th grade.
My name is Jonah, and I'm 10 years old, and I'm going to 5th grade.
My name is Lat, and I am 11 years old, and I am going to 5th grade.
My name is Igor. I'm 11 years old. I'm going to the 5th grade.
My name is Mello. I am 9 years old, and I'm going to 4th grade.
My name is Miles, and I'm 10 years old, and I'm going to the 5th grade.
My name is George, and I'm 10 years old, and I'm going to 5th grade.
My name is Venus. I am 10 years old, and I'm going to 5th grade.
Okay, thank you. May we have the city clerk please call roll.
Council Agency Member Johnson.
Present.
Council Agency Member Vo.
Present.
Council Agency Member Yokoyama.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem and Vice Chair Solanki.
Present.
Mayor and Chair Barros.
Present. Okay, under presentation appointments, we have no appointments tonight. But we do have a presentation from the Cerritos Auto Square Documentary video. And we have our staff introduce it, please.
Thank you, Mayor Barrows. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. This evening, staff is pleased to present the short version of the Cerritos Auto Square documentary video, a project produced by Pipeline Digital Media and presented by the City of Cerritos and the Cerritos Auto Square. The film, titled Nothing Like It in the World, tells a unique history of the Cerritos Auto Square and how it came to be, thanks to a successful partnership between the city and the Auto Square dealers. The Cerritos Auto Square Dealers Association will be utilizing the piece for onboarding and promotional purposes, and the city will be using it to facilitate local economic development and to promote the Cerritos Auto Square. It will be broadcast on Cerritos TV3, as well as the city's YouTube channel. Staff is open to any further suggestions as to the future presentation of the film, particularly the long version. One idea that has been floated is a movie premiere here at the CCPA. Tonight, we have members from the Cerritos Auto Square joining us for this premiere, in addition to filmmaker Todd Huffman. This time, I'd like to invite Dave Conant from Norv Reeves Honda Superstore to the podium to say a few words.
Thank you very much. I want to begin with a very sincere thank you to the council for supporting this project, which has turned out, I think, in my opinion, very, very good. I think you'll be very pleased. But I wanted to also mention the origins of it and how it came about. And this sort of goes to the saying that is often said about family businesses, small businesses. The first generation builds it, the second generation maintains it, and the third generation screws it up. And what we don't want is for that to happen with the Auto Square. The first generation did a beautiful job of building it along with the city. The second generation actually has been very energetic and has continued to build it. And for those coming behind us, we want to make sure that they have a story that is not only told to them, but which can be repeated again and again and again over the years, so that we keep the square on its toes, very sharp and very forward-looking as it has been to date. So it was somewhat in fear of the future that we decided we would take a step to try to improve the future and make a more confident future for the Auto Square. But thank you again for your support.
Thank you, Dave. At this time, we are pleased to present Nothing Like It in the World. We hope that you enjoy the film.
The city was incorporated as Erie Valley, and it had more cows than people.
This is the cow capital of Southern California. So you used to drive through here and you're driving in muddy streets.
And it was the place you went through en route to someplace that really mattered.
When my kids were little, I would take them out to see my parents out in Hacienda Heights, and you're coming home and they go, "Hey, Daddy, we're home, huh?" Because they could smell, they'd be laying down, they could smell the cow dogs.
The air doesn't smell that clean, okay?
It smelled bad, dude.
But still, I think that time, Cerritos, we knew would be a very, very beautiful city in the future.
It was the first 5 or 7 years from 69 to 75, all kinds of changes taking place. Obviously, going from a few thousand people and 60,000 cows to the cows are gone. It became a city.
The city made the determination that we were going to go into a area where we needed to raise funds. The city was incorporated as a no property tax city. There's only 2 big things in your portfolio. One is your home, the other is your automobile. Well, if I can't tax your home, that leaves one. And that's how we got around to the automobile.
Well, I give Gaylord Knapp the credit for the concept.
Very knowledgeable, hardworking, dedicated guy.
Gaylord was a great governmental person that had an entrepreneurial spirit.
When he had an idea, it was Gaylord's idea, and Gaylord was going to make sure it was going to be successful.
He was tough, but what a vision the guy had.
Even when he was no longer with the city and he was at Lake Forest, always identified with Cerritos. So if they were going to retire his jersey, it'd be at the city of Cerritos.
He felt that he wanted to generate a revenue-producing commercial area that was equal to or greater than the Los Cerritos Center, and to get rid of the cows. He saw that the only way to go forward was to have the cows relocated.
We had 2 dealerships selling just a few cars a month, S&J Chevrolet and Jim Snow Ford.
So he said, go find the dealers. And I said, what do you mean go find the dealers? He said, convince them that what we are going to do is going to benefit them. And if it benefits them, we will generate money for the city.
The economy when we started this in the middle 70s was in the doldrums, and we needed to do something because there was no dealers willing to move.
So then the idea came up with this 5 acres and 10 acres and anything in between.
We went to S&J Chevrolet first. S&J was not prepared to move quickly. We decided we'd look for other dealers first. And the first dealer we found was Browning Oldsmobile, Kent Browning.
And he basically came in there to kind of convince my grandpa to shut the doors.
My father could have retired comfortably, probably in Long Beach, but I told him this, I can't envision spending the rest of my career at 1227 Long Beach Boulevard. It was a war zone down there.
And my grandpa, fortunately, was very stubborn. He was a stubborn salesman, and he said, no, I'm not going to do it.
We got Bob Stevens, and he was Dotson. He was over in Lakewood. We got Lou Webb to move out of Hawaiian Gardens. That didn't take much.
The other dealer was Norm Reeves Honda.
It was easier as you got along in the process because the dealers, they understood that we wanted them. We had something special.
Did I know a lot about Cerritos in 1977, 78 when they made the initial contact? I can't say I did. I'd been to the Cerritos Mall. That was the first Nordstrom, I think, in Southern California, was in Cerritos. So I was familiar with it, but if they hadn't called us, would I have called them? I doubt it.
We wanted them to be successful. I tried very hard to convince them that what we were proposing and so forth was fair.
When you're making no money selling cars and you got to spend anything for land, for my father, it was a big number. For me, it was a big number. I had to figure out a way to pay for it.
Instead of just being on Long Beach Boulevard, from Belfour Boulevard, we're here. That's super big. All of you within this 100 acres that I got. Well, I don't got it. I didn't have it yet. I had to worry about, acquiring the land, going to the dairy farmers and basically saying, hey, we're going to buy your land.
We are knocking on dairy farmers' doors.
Dealing with the dairymen, God bless them. You can only talk to them in the morning and only at 10:30 because that was in between the milkings.
And at that time, selling their properties meant that if they didn't want to sell their property, we would use eminent domain and condemn their properties. So this was a pretty aggressive move on the part of the city. However, I think the dairymen were as smart as we were in that they saw the potential value that their cows were to us.
They were not required to leave. So as they wished to move, because urbanization kept encroaching on them, we would negotiate with them and buy the property.
We were fair, and I will use that word frequently in an instance later on with the General Motors people of this understanding of what it means to be fair as opposed to grindy.
So I think they were relocated 2 or 3 times and financially reaped the rewards of them having dairies and then ultimately losing the opportunity to have dairies in the communities they were in. The next order of business, believe it or not, was to figure out what the design of this center was going to look like.
Back then, there was no real image facility for the manufacturers. Every dealer could kind of build what they wanted. Well, Gaylord's like, I like New Orleans.
I was sort of surprised at New Orleans thing because Cerritos is a long way from New Orleans.
It was a little hokey, quite frankly. I remember asking someone from the city, what do you mean by New Orleans architecture? And the comment was, you go out to Disneyland and go to New Orleans Square. That's kind of what we want the buildings to look like.
And the city required that dealers all adopt the same architectural design.
That was part of the buy-in. They all had to kind of look alike, and we all bought in.
Keeping that unique kind of friendly theme of the design of the buildings and the layout of the properties
think that had a lot of influence to that, how a consumer or a customer feels as they come into the Auto Square.
There probably is a little haunted mansion in everything we have here.
It was difficult for the first 2 or 3 years.
The economy went the heck in a handbasket, and no one wanted to buy cars. The dealers didn't want to move. There were foreclosures, et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, we were the second store in Cerritos behind the Chevrolet store. And we were halfway finished building the building in Cerritos. The big Ford store across the street, which was the main attraction back then, they ended up closing the doors. I'll never forget when my father came into my office and said, "What have you done to me?"
They had to rely on good luck and their faith in the concept and hope like hell that it turned into something, because they all took on some deep debt to be here.
I remember trying to figure out a way to shave $10 off the building here and there. I was going to make it work no matter what. December 26, 1980. I drafted everybody in the family to move cars from Long Beach out here. S&J Chevrolet was the only other dealership here when we opened, and they were probably the sleepiest Chevrolet store in the country. It was Browningos and Billy Suzu. It was S&J Chevrolet, and there's cows running around on the other side of the street. But a lot of trepidation. I think I worked 72 days in a row one time when we first moved in here. Moving to Cerritos was, that was like moving to the other side of the Rocky Mountains in 1980. It was a long ways away. Getting the customers to understand that Cerritos wasn't as far away as they thought it was.
And these guys were just, trying to make a go at it through some very challenging time in the early 80s.
I used to drive on the lot and look at every one of those cars. It was costing $5 a day to sit there. And $5 a day was a lot of money in 1980.
I mean, I remember sitting in a room with Donna Reeves. At the time, they were paying probably $1,500 a month for the location in Bellflower.
I convinced Mrs. Reeves to take the parcel next door.
All these were big, bold moves to come to this Auto Square, which was really, at the time, a complete experiment.
When the Auto Square started filling up, when the Toyota store moved from Hawaiian Gardens, when the Honda store moved in here, it became the place to be as far as selling cars in Southern California.
We have something that we didn't understand how successful it was going to be.
And then we said to them, if you come here, you must belong to an auto association. Well, that was just taboo.
Now, they're pretty independent dudes, right? I mean, they're very independent. They like to do their own advertising, do this.
It required monthly meetings of the dealers. It required a combined association advertising budget on a monthly basis.
We were putting huge money in the dealer association to not advertise selling an Oldsmobile back then, or selling a Toyota, or selling a Honda. Selling the Cerritos Auto Square as a place to come and buy a car.
These guys, they really had a sense of camaraderie. And as much as they wanted to beat the guy next to them, they also realized that everybody succeeding was better than just one person succeeding.
You know, Vern, it's hard to be upwardly mobile, especially when your car won't start.
605 Freeway and South Street.
Ernest was one of the best ad campaigns this Auto Square ever had.
My creative director comes in with this tape of Ernest and Bert. And I go, oh boy, here we go again, Scott.
Yeah, I can imagine the first time we saw Barney, he said, well, who is this nut? And we probably had to go home and think about it. Give us a time out from this stuff.
The time to stretch. Let the salt thunder belly of Cerritos Auto Square.
Take advantage of them before it all ends.
They were impactful. They were memorable, campy. Really campy.
I got a kick out of them. Some people thought I was corny.
Friends made fun of me a little bit in growing up because they knew what we did, especially when we came up with our own jingles.
In the early days, I wasn't a big believer in sort of the corniness of the Jim Varney ads. But by the time I attended meetings and had a voice in those meetings, I was becoming a big fan.
It's like buying a new car for an old price. Oh, look, Vern, it's me, an old Santa Claus. Can I be Penny Santa helper?
What up, you little lad?
I remember having people call me and said, how could you have this guy represent you as a group of dealers? I said, I'll tell you why, because people are going to remember this group of dealers when they think about buying a car.
He definitely was a great actor and a great combination for the Auto Square.
He honored his commitments to us for a long time. He unfortunately passed away at an early age.
He helped build the brand, which is Cerritos Auto Square.
The manufacturer saw the Auto Square as the ultimate.
And they came out and physically looked. People drive, park the car, and maybe they went to look for a Toyota, but they wind up buying a Buick.
If you're not in the Auto Square, you just will not, achieve the level of success that you're looking for.
I mean, what the hell? You got Marm Reeves here, and the others around advertise the largest the biggest.
My job as a very young lad, as a 24-year-old guy, was to looking at opportunities to bring Mazda brand into the Cerritos Auto Square.
I understand why the Cerritos Auto Square is number one, and it largely has to do with its location.
The geography is part of the biggest success.
I haven't heard a population count recently, but there were something like 7.5 million people within 25 miles of here. That's a jackpot. And guess what? They all need cars.
Through Gaylord and the team, we were able to generate a revenue program for the city that no one has been able to match.
Now, that's sales tax revenue. That's a major part of the budget.
You wouldn't have 26 parks in this city without the Auto Square and the mall.
Our budget operation for the city is $120 million. So that amount of money has to be raised on an annual basis.
The most important one is that of law enforcement, and they essentially cover that entire cost.
But I think that the most important thing not only is tax generation, but job creation.
It's our largest employer in the city.
We have almost 5,000 employees that are employed by the dealers. All of that works together. It's harmonious. We get the sales tax, but the entire region gets the regional work.
I had a chance to be part of the development of a city.
This is a program that was started almost 50 years ago and will continue being what it is 50 years in the future with different technology, with different designs, with different vehicles, but it will be here forever and ever.
I don't think any of us had the idea how successful, how big it was going to get. There's been times it's done $1 billion a year in sales. I mean, this little old city of Cerritos, who ever thought that, right?
I measure this store three ways: Honda's district numbers, Honda's zone numbers, and I also measure it in the Auto Square numbers. It's that big of a deal.
There's a level of expectation within our company about being in the Auto Square. I get compared to every top performing Ford store in Southern California, as I should. But many times our conversations have concluded with, well, you're the only one in the square.
The thing that makes this business model so successful is the relationship with the city.
We have a number one auto mall in the world. So you talk about that, you are very proud of it.
They understood that we're a business and there's certain needs that we had, yet there was needs that they had from the citizens and the people that live around us.
There's times where they try to push the envelope, but at the end of the day, you know, it's a very productive relationship.
We are their partner. When they make money, we make money, and we still need to make that money to pay for law enforcement. We still need that money to pay for water.
I think the magic has been that we as a group of dealers got together and recognized that we had a rare opportunity here.
It allowed my family to have a great, legacy, and we've employed thousands upon thousands of people.
The geography is not going to change. There's always going to be great traffic, but the importance and the magic for the future is that the dealers continue to understand and respect the importance of working together.
This advertising budget, it's been a big chunk of a lot of dealers' ad budget for years. So there's always been a tendency by one or two to say, why do I need to do this? Well, I think we're all in or we're not all in. And if somebody elects not to get in, I'd hate to think the thing might fall apart, but it might.
I think they shouldn't take it for granted. The square is an effort. It's not going to function without their effort, their cooperation and participation.
If you're going to be in the Auto Square, you're a part of the association. When I found that out, I thought, that city of Cerritos, that was a pretty smart idea. If the jingle's good, you're going to remember it, which means you remember the name of whoever is the advertiser.
You tell somebody, where do you work? I go Cerritos, and then they sing the jingle.
Can you sing the jingle for me? You know the jingle?
If I had music and if you were to lead me with exact.
What's the latest one? You got it? You know it for me?
It's simplified. I can't sing the jingle for you anymore.
Section 5 at South Street. I was trying.
The jingle. What's the current jingle?
I don't remember.
Cerritos Auto Square.
Dave, I want to say thank you to you and the Auto Square for, bringing this forward and having the city give a chance to work with you on it. I've grown up in the area and I'm well aware of the history. And it's very unique. I've had business up in Santa Barbara, Bakersfield, San Diego. And when Vern was on, they'd sing that little jingle to me talking about Cerritos. It's hopefully that memory doesn't ever go away. It's done just a great job on behalf of our city, and our staff has done a phenomenal job putting this forward also. Is there any other comments from council?
Yeah, I'd just
Lynn?
like to thank, all of you for being a part of the Cerritos family. That clip actually made me kind of emotional because I grew up here since 1971. So I grew up along with you guys as well. And thank you for making that and bringing, helping folks remember the history of the Auto Square. Very important. Thank you.
I'd just like to add to all that, we do appreciate the relationship that was mentioned in the video. It goes both ways, right? I know sometimes those relationships cause some tension, but at the end of the day, we both get something out of it, and the positive impact that, as you can see from the video, that the city benefits from, as well as the dealership being in our city. That jingle is interesting. I told this story a few times where I was at a conference nowhere near Cerritos, out of town, and we were supposed to introduce ourselves when we got up, introduce each of us, and you had to say something unique about your city. So I stood up. I was probably like the 30th one, and by the time I stood up, and I said, at the time I was mayor, and I said, I'm mayor of Cerritos, and I'm just going to say on the count of three, we're going to sing it. That's all I said. And on the count of three, they all sang the tune in unison. It was beautiful. I wish I recorded it. They all said the jingle is Cerritos Auto Square. It was beautiful. And we all started laughing afterwards because they knew, just the fact that I was from Cerritos, they knew that jingle. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Yes, we are so proud and honored to have you guys in our city. And it's like a partnership with the dealership in our city that we generate quite a bit of revenue out of your dealerships. And it pays for our safety, like Tori says, and the other programs. And we thank you, and we welcome you anytime. Thank you.
Frank, did you want to say something? Okay, thank you. Does anyone on staff want to add 2 cents more? Okay, I think we're all good. Anyway, for the Auto Square, thank you again very much, and we look forward to seeing the longer version when it comes out also. And we'll move on to public comments and suggestions.
Excuse me, I had an item for 5C.
No, I announced it earlier that there's no presentation, no appointments.
5C is after 5B.
Appointments is 5C, and I said there was none.
So you went out of order.
You what?
So you went out of order.
I'm allowed to do that.
Okay. Once again, you were.
Okay, so
you do things out of order.
6, which is public comments and suggestions. Yeah, please state your name and fill the card out after you're done.
Good evening. Case Vanderlinden, resident of Cerritos since 71. I must say, I remember all this, the story about the auto center. Amazing story. In those days, our company was very much involved with auto dealerships, with communications, intercom, paging, and what have you. So we did a few of those. My subject over here is, as you all know, Carol's closed down here about a couple of weeks ago, and that has all to do with the strip mall at Bloomfield and South Street. The stories are rampant as what's going to happen to that strip mall, but I like to kind of voice my thought of that strip mall. It is sad that the strip mall was not maintained the way it was in 1971 when we moved in there. It was a very nice strip mall, and we enjoyed walking from our residence for breakfast or for Sunday brunch two Carol's before that big boy. It's been there for an awful long time. And unfortunately, the stories that go around is that the owner sold it to a group that planned to build housing there. I can assure you that we, the people of the surrounding area, will put out a battle if that will come up for zoning change, just like happened a few years back with other reasons. But there is absolutely no room, the way I can see it, to put housing in that area. I would love to see the strip mall being renovated and brought up to date like a lot of other strip malls perhaps were done. It's been in pretty sad shape for some time, but it's sad to think that these icon restaurants and stores like the pizza place was there up till the 90s. And then it went away and it was not replaced. And now we have an after school crash center there for kids. Anyhow, this place looks really run down, but I would hate to think that somewhere on the line, we would consider putting housing in there. We need housing in that area like we need a hole in the head because we don't need more traffic there. I mean, from my street coming into Bloomfield, there's times I don't even attempt to go from Valencia into Bloomfield because you cannot even get in there because the traffic is just constant. You have to wait till the light turns red on 195th and Bloomfield, and then you have a short chance to turn right. Forget about turning left. So I always go the other way. So we don't need more traffic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Case. Is there anyone else that wishes to address the council? Seeing none. Vita, do we have any from the internet or mail?
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. We have two pieces of written correspondence that were submitted for item number 6. The first was submitted by Gail Grossman expressing concern regarding recent coyote sightings in the community. And Colleen Aldrich also submitted written correspondence expressing concern regarding recent coyote sightings in the community. And there was no further written correspondence. All written correspondence submitted by the deadline listed on the agenda is considered public record. Prior to the meeting, the council and agency members received copies of the full text unredacted written correspondence, which was submitted for this item. Public requests for copies of the full text redacted written correspondence can be made during regular business hours in the office of the city clerk. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. We'll close public comments this time. Move to the consent calendar. We're looking for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Vita, can you do a roll call, please?
The motion has been made by Councilmember Solanki and seconded by Councilmember Yokoyama. At this time, a roll call vote will be conducted. Council Agency Member Johnson? Aye. Council Agency Member Vo?
Aye.
Council Agency Member Yokoyama?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem and Vice Chair Solanki?
Aye.
Mayor and Chair Barrows?
Aye.
The motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
Okay, under item 8, we have public hearings, and I believe we have none. And we'll move on to items 9A and B. Could be considered together. And without objection, we'll let staff do the presentation that way.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, this evening we have two items for you to present this evening. And this will be presented by Amandeep, and she will talk about the project at Capitol as it relates to trees and concrete. Amandeep?
Thank you, Mr. Galucci. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. Tonight, I will present to you the consideration of award of contracts for construction of tree and concrete improvements within a residential neighborhood. It is important to note that both contracts are complementary to each other, and as such, I will be presenting both items 9A and 9B concurrently. The improvements include removal and replacement of trees, replacement of damaged sidewalks, curbs, and ADA improvements as needed. The remainder of the presentation will be on the screen. The currently adopted capital improvement program identifies residential street rehabilitation project to fund these improvements. This project is partly funded through the road maintenance and rehabilitation account, which was created as a result of Senate Bill 1. As mentioned earlier, this project focuses on replacement of damaged sidewalks, mainly due to trees, tree replacement, and construction of ADA-compliant curb ramps. The following slide shows the area that will be rehabilitated as part of the project. The project area is generally located at the northeast corner of 183rd Street and Palo Verde Avenue. These are the selected tree species that will be planted in this area per the Pine Tree Reforestation Program. The species include aristocrat pear, pink trumpet, red oak, and sweet bay. These images show the trees as they may appear when more fully matured. On May 17, 2023, the city clerk received and opened 3 bids for the proposed work. As indicated on the slide above, Golden West Arbor Services of Pomona submitted the apparent low bid. Staff has reviewed the contractor's license and has verified that it is in good standing and appropriate for this type of work. The slide here shows the 3 bids received by the city clerk office. Following the completion of the tree removal, the contractor will begin the concrete improvements in the project area. The red dots on the slide represent the curb ramps that will be replaced to comply with the current accessibility guidelines. On May 17, 2023, the city clerk received and opened 4 bids for the proposed work. As indicated on the slide above, CJ Concrete Construction, Inc. of Santa Fe Springs submitted the apparent low bid. Staff has reviewed the contractor's license and has verified that it is in good standing and appropriate for this type of work. The total cost to complete both the concrete and tree improvements is $799,400. The current adopted budget provides $3 million in funds for similar repairs in several residential neighborhoods. Therefore, sufficient funding is available for this work. At this time, staff recommends the following actions. First, adopt the finding that the project is categorically exempt pursuant to the SECA guidelines. Second, award a contract in the amount of $115,400 to Golden West Arbor Services and reject the other bids. Third, award a contract in the amount of $674,000 to CJ Concrete Construction and reject the other bids. Finally, authorize the city manager or his designee to execute any project-related change orders. This concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time. Mr. Lopez and I are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the report. Are there any questions? Yes, John?
Thank you for that report. I do have some questions and some comments in regards to this. First of all, what trees are present in that neighborhood right now that will be removed? Are those the pine trees?
I can answer that question. There's a variety of trees within that neighborhood. About half of the trees that are proposed for removal are pine trees. And in addition to that, there are several other species of trees that have been causing damage and are planned for removal.
Thank you. So even before I got elected, it's been an ongoing subject where, people are upset because the pine trees cause damage, pine needles, pollen. And so we constantly would get those complaints from the community, right, about the pine trees. So prior to me, the council did the reforestation program, which is to get rid of all the pine trees. Well, when that started happening, guess what? The other group that loved pine trees would call and say that, hey, we're upset you're removing pine trees, but we really didn't hear much before that, right? So what I guess my comment or my question would be is, we try to make everyone happy, but it's difficult, right? Is there any way, moving forward, then when we have these projects, that we can get some possible input from the community? I know I see it on your face already, Robert. So there'll be a lot of work for your staff, but some notification or even some options of neighborhood watch meetings, some town meetings, maybe just once or twice, to just hear and also explain to these neighborhoods that this is happening, this is coming. Because to receive a notice, I get it. That's the best, that's one practical way of doing it. The other option is also maybe just to reach out to the community that is going to be impacted and just have maybe one meeting and then have the neighbors come in, if not 2, just so they can express what species they might want moving forward. And on a selfish note, is because, I've been getting a lot of phone calls after the fact because, they weren't happy with certain species that were put in or so forth. And then staff has to revisit it if, they think that there's sufficient reasons to revisit it. I just would like to just try to approach in the front end and maybe just, and then maybe get comments from the community, see what species, because I know there's a varieties of species we can pick, right? Because there's a book out there and they, it doesn't have to be that one, but maybe just get some feedback from them. And in that way we can, on the back end, said that we were able to come out and have that communication, a discussion with the neighborhood. This is maybe what those who communicated with staff, this is what they want based on the choices that they can have on that book, versus just staff saying, hey, this is what we're going to put in there. And because if you're given choices, who gets to pick the one, I think it'd be best to maybe have the residents possibly have some input in that. And I'm just throwing it out there. But I do appreciate this report, and I plan on voting for it. Thank you. That's it.
I guess I was looking, is that a question you want an answer to?
He did answer one question for me in regards to what type of trees were present.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, please.
Yes, Frank.
Thanks for the presentation. First, I just wanted to confirm, it says that the funding source for both the tree improvements and the concrete improvements, it includes Measure M funds. And I just wanted to cross-reference that with our city designated funds, and are the Measure M funds mentioned in the agenda report the same thing as the Prop M fund? Are those the exact same thing?
Measure M funds that is one of the funding sources under capital project number 14088. The majority of the funding within that capital project, while it does include Measure M, it comes from the RMRA, also known as Senate Bill 1 fund.
Yes, I see that. Thank you, Robert. And you guys, your agenda report mentions that both the tree improvements and the concrete improvements include funding from the RMRA fund. And we have that fund as one of our city listed funds, our city designated funds. My question is, both agenda reports for the tree improvement and the concrete improvement say that funding is going to come from Measure M. And my question is, the agenda reports reference Measure M. Is that the exact same thing as the city fund called Prop M fund?
We do have in our budget Measure M fund. I see our finance manager, Mr. Carey, is looking at that in detail.
We don't have a city fund called a Measure M fund.
We do have one called Measure M, yes.
Okay, so that's different from the Prop M fund?
I think it's maybe a semantics issue, potentially with the staff report. I think we're talking about Measure M. Measure M is Fund 220 in our budget. You're correct. We do not have a Prop M fund. I think perhaps it was just maybe a typo in the staff report.
Well, on our treasurer's report, we call it the Prop M fund. Code 220 is the Prop M fund.
I'm looking at the budget book. I understand you're looking at the treasurer's report as well. In the budget book, it's referenced as Measure M. So maybe we can go back and make some adjustments to the treasurer's report if we need to make sure it's consistent across the board.
Because it seems like there's a reason for using the words measure or prop. Because our treasurer's report uses the word measure for certain funds and it used the words prop for certain funds.
Yeah, we could go back and take a look and make it consistent across the board.
Okay, and the reason, because funding of city expenses or city capital improvements matters to our residents and to the city council. So that was the first thing. I just wanted to confirm where the money's coming from. Okay? And both agenda reports reference Measure M. Okay? But, and I like the fact that these tree improvements and concrete improvements are coming from RMRA, our Code 210 Road Maintenance and Rehabilitation Fund. And then the concrete improvements reference it's coming from the Trash Franchise Fund, Code 212, for example. And I already talked about how it mentions it's coming from Measure M. So my question, getting to my question is, you know, I looked at these agenda reports, and then when I got the presentation and the PowerPoint said fiscal impact, the fiscal impact on the PowerPoint indicates that no funding is coming from our general fund. It says RMRA, Measure M, and trash franchise fees, trash franchise funds, and that's great. But that's inconsistent with the agenda reports that were given to the City Council ahead of time, because the tree improvement agenda report indicates that the funding is going to be coming from general funds. So which is correct, the agenda report or the presentation we were given today, where the funding sources for the improvements are limited to RMRA, Measure M, and trash franchise funds? Because it's always important to know when and how we're spending our general funds.
I can help to clarify that. The overall capital project, which the City Council has budgeted $3 million for the entire fiscal year, that entire project is funded through the various sources, the RMRA, Measure M, and so forth. And it's a practice of city staff, when we have those restricted funds, to utilize those funds first before we dip into general funds. So the $3 million as a whole includes the combination, but it's because this is the first project of this fiscal year, we won't be touching general funds yet. When we do additional tree and concrete and asphalt projects from this capital project later in the fiscal year, at that point we will be using a portion of the general fund to complete the improvements. So for these particular contracts, they will be exclusively funded through the restricted funds, not general fund.
So this project number 14088, bid number 1496-23, will not touch our general funds.
That's correct. Since these projects totaling approximately 700,000 or so, there is plenty of restricted funds to cover these particular contracts. Later in the fiscal year, we will be using a small amount of general fund money to complete other neighborhoods as part of this project.
Okay, so then again, so this project and bid number will not touch our general funds, and the statement within the agenda report that funding includes general funds has been corrected by tonight's presentation, correct?
It's correct that those funding sources make up the entire $3 million project, but tonight's award will not include a general funding source.
Thank you, Robert.
Frank, any other questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Linda, I think you said you had a comment.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. You know, many times we may not agree, all five of us here, but I'm very pleased that all five of us are united on approving a budget that addresses our trees and concrete improvements for, you know, better lifestyles for our residents. So I'm very happy to see that we'll have removed 76 parkway trees and 64 trees, and we'll have major concrete improvements. I really want to thank staff for that. And I actually like the selection of trees that were chosen. I believe they'll beautify the area. I wish I had a trumpet tree. I didn't get one, but that's okay, because I can really appreciate staff actually looking and doing the research of the types of trees that can be placed in certain areas of the city. Much consideration, I'm sure, is taken into account, such as the soil, the sun, the wind, all of that. So it's not a matter of just getting a tree and placing it there. I'm sure there's a lot that's taken into consideration on the species and types. So I'm hoping that the residents will be pleased with the tree selections. And I just really want to thank staff for their hard work. Thank you.
Okay, we'll close public comments unless there's any more. Excuse me, any questions from our council? We'll open to the public for comments. Is there anyone that wishes to address the council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close public comments.
Move to approve. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Vita,
I just want to clarify that was a motion to approve 9A and 9B.
Yes.
Yes, both.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I did hear a motion by Councilmember Solanki, and unfortunately from my place, I heard both Councilmember Vo and Councilmember Yokoyama at the same time.
I'll pull back my second.
Thank you. So a second by Councilmember Yokoyama to approve items 9A and 9B as recommended by staff. This time a roll call vote will be conducted. Council Agency Member Johnson.
Yes.
Council Agency Member Vo.
Aye.
Council Agency Member Yokoyama.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem and Vice Chair Solanki.
Aye.
Mayor and Chair Barrows.
Aye.
The motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
Okay, next up on the agenda is legislative items. Art, do you have any reports?
Nothing this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, under 11A, report from the city manager.
Again, no report. Our program we put on with the Auto Mall was our presentation, sir.
Okay, 11B, council communications, committee reports. Frank, we'll go ahead and start with you today.
Nothing.
Okay, Linda.
Yes, thank you. On June 23rd, as a committee member, I attended the Cal Cities Revenue and Taxation meeting. June 25, I attended the CCPA Ambassador Social. On July 26, we had a special guest from the Consulate of the Philippines. Consul General Edgar Badajos came and visited the city of Cerritos. He was very impressed with our sculpture garden and library and liked to further our relationship with the Consulate General in some future programming involving the arts. Next time he would like to visit the CCPA. On July 4th, I attended the annual flag raising ceremony at the Church of the Latter-day Saints in Bellflower. And of course, July 4th, that's later that evening, I was at the Let Freedom Ring celebration. Thank you, Sherry, for that fabulous event. Over 20,000 people I heard were in attendance. Very, very nice, very good feedback on that. On July 6th, I attended the monthly CEHD meeting that I attend monthly. And on July 10th, I attended the volunteer recognition event held here at the CCPA. Last Saturday, July 15th, I attended the second annual Philippine-American Friendship Day at Canabi Park. This event is hosted and sponsored by Supervisor Janice Hahn in partnership with the National Federation of Filipino-American Associations. This is a county event and recognized by the LA County Department of Parks and Recreation as a community cultural event that is open to everyone. It was great to see the diversity in the attendees that wanted to participate and learn about Filipino culture and food. Because it was publicized by Supervisor Hahn's office, there were requests from council members from all over the county, such as Beverly Hills, Walnut, Lakewood, including College Board member from El Camino College, all asking to join in the celebration. So thank you again to Supervisor Hahn for bringing this event to Canabi Park and looking forward for next year's event. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean?
Thank you, Mayor. On June 24th, I attended the First CEB Car Wash fundraiser for the First CEB Meritorious Marines. I think it was a good turnout, and Kathy, you were there too. Appreciate your attendance and help with that event along with the city. July 4th, also attended the Let Freedom Ring ceremony. What a great performance by the band as well as the fireworks show. And the best performance throughout the whole night was the staff. Sherry, and I know that everybody from Art all the way down, Sherry and everybody else did an outstanding job to make sure that everyone was safe, and also to make it enjoyable for the community. I was on that morning, I was driving around the city early in the morning up to July 4th, and I met some early visitors at Heritage Park, and they showed up, and what I noticed is that they were cleaning up their sites, getting ready to reserve their space at our parks. And one of the things that I noticed they were raking up, some duck remains. And so I quickly called Art right away, and thanks to the staff for coming out, I think 3 times that day to make sure our residents and our visitors had a clean park to attend and watch the fireworks show. So I want to thank staff for that. Excuse me. And then, interestingly enough, I also attended an event in I'll say neighboring city, and they were excited to have about 500 to 600 attendees that morning. And later on, we found that we have almost 20,000 at our city at our fireworks show. So it just tells you the production, the magnitude that our city has to put forward for our residents or visitors and those who all attended. So thank you. July 10th, I attended the volunteer dinner. It's nice to see all the volunteers that help out throughout the city. And July 12th, I was at the chamber event for I Love Bob, which is business. What does the acronym stand for? Business over. Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't remember what it stands for, but I was there. And then July 5th, this Saturday, I was also at the Filipino cultural event early in the morning. I happened to be riding or just tuning around with my dog, and saw the event, and I thought it was very well planned, and I think it's probably ended up to be a very successful event. So I want to thank the county and Janice Hahn for setting that all up. And then also, actually, I think that's all I got. Thank you.
I think you said most of all. So tonight we had also the volunteers stand awards at the library where Mayor and Councilman Wo attended tonight. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, and I think I attended a good part of the ones that were mentioned so far. Bill, we do have a closed session tonight, with 2 items. Can you go through the routine on it?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. There are 5 listed closed session items, but only 2 for discussion tonight. Item 12A, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to California Government Code Section 54956.9, subdivision D1. Name of the case is the City of Cerritos versus Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority, LA County Superior Court case number 22 STCP 04277. Item 12B is public employment pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957, subdivision B, with the title, The Position of City Manager. And items 12C, D, and E are recurring items on public employee performance evaluations for the city manager, city clerk, and city attorney. And with that, the council can recess.
Okay, we'll move to closed session, and we'll report out if there's any actions taken. The meeting is adjourned.